Hello everybody, and welcome to my talk. When I was must have been about 10 years old, my mother got the opportunity to take a stall. So here we are, and we have our stall in Dewsbury Market, and it's doing quite well. And then the opportunity comes along, and that opportunity is a stall in Sheffield Market. This was an opportunity, but it was a risk. It was a risk because firstly, my mother would have to give up her job. Secondly, we would have to borrow some money because we realized that if we took a stall selling 6 days a week, we couldn't make enough money to sell on stockings. So we had to supplement the offer. So we needed to borrow money because we decided that we wanted to sell handbags and jewelry. We opened the stall, and the stall became a huge success. And at 15, I said to my mother, I want to leave school. I want to leave school. I didn't have a single qualification. My mother and father never even thought about telling me I should go on and have an education, because in those days it just wasn't so important. And I would say, I will caveat that today by saying, if you've got entrepreneurship, you can still be a success today with no qualifications. That hasn't changed. So then off I went, working every day in Sheffield. And by the time we got our third stall, my father had left. He was no longer a tailor. My grandfather was now working for us, and we had 3 busy stalls selling ladies' jewelry, handbags. And then we got an opportunity for a 4th stall. Now, once I got over the desire of selling handbags and jewelry, I wanted to go into the fashion business because I love anything to do with fashions. I still love fashions all those years later today. But there were really no real fashion stores in the market at that time. We took this little fashion store and we drove to London, because now we had to drive to London to buy the fashions. And there was lots of wholesalers in London selling ladies' fashions. And we opened up the stall and we sold ladies' fashions. So now we've jumped to 4 stalls, and the ladies' fashions, although it was not in a great location, it was super successful. The next thing that happens is they built another indoor market across the road in Sheffield, and we take another big stall there. Then Rotherham opened an indoor market, and we took another stall there. And now we're rolling. And so by the time I got married and had my first baby, we had 13 stalls, then all over West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. And we needed to take a distribution place, because we were now buying in London, and every stall after the first 3, we sold fashions. We discontinued, although in one of them we kept the 3 with the handbags and jewelry, but we made all the others fashions. So there was a lot of traveling to London, and I've taken a distribution centre in the fashion wholesale area of Leeds. And here we're bringing all our stock in, and we're distributing it, and we've got vans and drives, and it's going out to the stores. I made the distribution showroom a wholesale showroom, called it Trendsetters, moved the distribution to a back area somewhere further away, and opened my wholesale business. Let me tell you, I was a wife, I was a mother, and I was a businesswoman. And for the ladies out there, don't ever let anyone tell you you can't be all 3, because you can. And I had guilt feelings. My kids were looked after, my husband didn't travel with me, and I was very lucky that my mum and dad would move in. This was the times when I was away in Hong Kong. But my boys grew up and absolutely had the best and biggest respect for me. I made sure that when I was with them, I had quality time with them. But I'll tell you this much, my boys, and to this day, they had the greatest respect for their mother. So I think respect has to be earned. So all those mums out there, or future dads out there, or thinking, if I do this in business, will it jeopardize the love and respect of my children? The answer is no, it won't. If you make sure you're giving your children quality time, because your success is laying the foundation for your children. So I always say, having worked don't worry. Kids are a lot more resilient than we think they are. So here I am with my wholesale and my 13 shops, and I have a Chinese friend who I'm buying knitwear from, and he says to me one day, I've got a colleague in Hong Kong. He was the main supplier for Freeman's Mail Order. That was a mail order catalogue. He's got a lot of UK quota, and he's looking for a customer. Linda, why don't you go to Hong Kong and meet him? So when I went to Hong Kong, and I met this gentleman, and I knew I wanted to put a knitwear range together. Now, there was very, very many factories, and he took me around to lots of factories, and I would look at the samples they were making, and I would think, oh, I like that, but I want to alter it. I'm very creative in my mind. So by the end of 2 weeks, I felt I'd put a range together, and I thought, well, I think this needs a brand, and I would brand it with a name that was feminine and represented the kind of merchandise. So I called it Honeysuckle. And right there in a cab in Hong Kong, I thought of the name Honeysuckle. And I had I had it all done in Hong Kong. I had all the graphics, all the labeling, everything done. 2 weeks later, I brought back with me a range of samples, and wow, it was one of the first, people ask me, what have been the big turning points in your life? And yes, I might have done things later on in life that have been massive, but the small things, the starting things, have been the biggest and most memorable. I pre-sold every piece way before they were coming in. So I realized that I knew I had to go back to Hong Kong, because the next range would be the winter range, because we had to work 6 months ahead. And I get to Hong Kong, and my agent says to me, well, now we have to go to Seoul, Korea. Another turning point happens in my life in Seoul, Korea. So I walk into a factory, and I see the most amazing range of sweaters hanging up. If I saw them today, I would still love them. And they were sweaters with beads and embroideries and flowers and everything that was just so fabulous. And I said to the owner of the factory, I want these sweaters. And he goes to me, oh no, I'm sorry, you can't have these sweaters. They're for America. They're for a Korean designer called Maria Kim. So I said, well, why can't I have them? He said, well, they're for her. I said, well, let me meet her. No, she's not here. So I said, well, who can I meet? He said, well, her husband is here. I said, let me meet him. So he makes the phone call. He says, okay, he's arranged to meet you. So I sat down and I said to him, look, I haven't got a huge business, but I think I've got huge potential. I really want to buy your sweaters, and I want them for England. And while I was at it, I thought I'll throw in Europe, because he's not selling in Europe, and I didn't know whether I could or couldn't, but I thought I'll add it on. Anyway, I got the rights to the sweaters. I did not only those sweaters, I did a beautiful range. I went to Taiwan, I went to Hong Kong, and I came back with this fantastic range of sweaters. I decided at this time, now I'm living in Leeds, I've got a nice business, but I think I need to I need to go to a fashion show. I need to go to London, to Olympia, to the big fashion show. I got a small stand, and I put my Honeysuckle branded sweaters up on this fashion show, and that was the turning point in my career, probably the biggest turning point, because I had every single retailer in the country, and from France and from Germany, on my stall and on my stand. And I thought, oh my God, I could drown in success here if I don't make sure, if I take orders, I can deliver them. If I don't make sure, I have to be sure that what I'm selling, I can execute, I can keep the customers happy, because it goes back to relationships. It's very important to keep your customers. Anyway, no doubt to say I did. And I did keep the customers happy. I opened a showroom in London. And then one day I get a phone call, and the phone call is from a public company. And they said, would you like to sell your business? I said, well, we'll have a meeting and we'll see what these people say about selling the business. I went to see the people who were buying the business, and they said, look, we've got 14 other businesses. We want to buy the business, but we want to let you carry on. You just carry on and you just run it, and we'll give you X amount of money, but you'll run that business, and you'll just come and report to us twice a year. And it sounded good to me, and we decided to sell the business. And it was very nice, and we got a nice lump sum of money, and they were pretty true to their word. They let me carry on with the business, and I went twice a year reporting the profits, and I was on a profit share. And then one day, just under 2 years later, I get a call, and they said, look, we need to see you. We've bought an insurance company, and it's dragged us down, and we're going bust. So I took it back. And the business went on, and it carried on. And in the midst of the business, someone approached me with an electronics, sat around the table with this guy, and he sold microwave ovens and TVs. It was a completely different product to what I was selling, but it was a variation of a theme. It was importing. And his idea, he had contracts with big retail companies, the likes of Comet Stores, which you might not remember, and Dixon's, which I think now it's Curry's, I'm not sure. And these people were prepared to buy massive volume and open letters of credit, and we would be a middle person, doing all the work, doing all the sourcing, finding the products, being quite open with them, and taking a known profit, but it was massive volume. We started the electronics business. I was mentoring, I was behind it. It was a variation of a theme. I understood importing. Didn't matter if it was a jumper or a television. I understood what was required in an importing business. The first year it made 250,000. The second year it made 600,000. And the third year it made 1.1 million. And the phone rings, would you like to sell your electronics business? Well, we sold the electronics business to a bigger electronics company. I exited that business because the people obviously didn't need me, they were running it. And that continued on. And I continued on with Honeysuckle, and we were doing lovely. And then someone approached and said, would you like to go on the stock market? Would you like to float? Anita Roddick from Body Shop, she just floated and she danced across the stock exchange, and no women at the forefront of business had been on the London stock market. So I guess I thought, let's look at Linda, she might be a good candidate. And I thought, well, wow, I'll go and I'll float my business and I'll become a public company. And I met all these city guys, and you know, they would say to us, Linda, you haven't been to university. What do you owe your success for? What have you done? And I just said, well, simply, I went to the University of Life, you know. I started on a market stall and I worked my way up. And I don't have a single qualification. And actually, yeah, do I wish sometimes I'd been a bit more educated? I do, but I'm educated in life. And I'm educated in understanding people and the key things that carry you through what was then a trading business. So I'm afraid I couldn't be a doctor or a pharmacist, but I could trade. And I traded fashions, and I traded in electronics, and I floated my business. And all great things have to come to an end. And I'd been in my business, I had an office in Hong Kong, and I spent half my life traveling around the globe, and now it was China, and it was India, and it was Bangladesh. And I had my third child quite late in life, and I decided it was time to exit the fashion business. Much as I loved it, I'd done too many years, and I knew it was time to start something new. And I moved from Leeds to London. I was already working in London 3 days a week, so it wasn't a big move. But I moved to London, and I started in the property business. And that is really where I am today. And I started selling high-end residential properties. During that time in the property business, I had a belief, my love of fashion, my love of style, that when I developed houses, I wanted to furnish them, because not everyone has a great vision. You know, that I had a vision for embroidered sweaters. I think when people walk into a house, it sells much better if they see it furnished and looking fabulous. They may not want the furniture. I never dreamt really of selling the furniture. I used it as a tool to aid the selling of the house. And if they didn't want the furniture, it didn't matter. And then people started to say, can you furnish our properties? Now, I never intended to become an interior designer, but I did have a team to furnish the properties. So I decided, well, why not? why not? I only have to employ a couple more people. So I decided to open an interior design business, but I decided I would focus on central London. I wanted to have a niche. I wanted to work for people who, what I call, were cash rich, time poor. People from abroad, and there was many of them in central London, who would come into London, they'd buy a property, and they really didn't have the time to deal with, you know, refurbing it, furnishing it, and that's where I focus my interior design business. And I've carried that on, and I've still carried on my property business. And then one day the phone rings and it's Alan Sugar, or Lord Sugar. And I know him as Alan because I met Alan in the years when he had Amstrad and I had Honeysuckle. And although we weren't socially friendly, I knew him, and I have a son who lives in America who's quite friendly with him. And he phones me up and he goes, Linda, I need an interviewer for the final 5 candidates. Now, I need somebody who's going to be able to dig deep and expose weaknesses. Can you do it? So I said, well, I'll have a go, because I always tell everybody in life, you've got to have a go. If you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. So I said, okay. So he said, I'll hook you up with the people at the BBC. I'll send over my people and have a go. And sure enough, the BBC got in touch with me, and they gave me a mock business plan, and I went along and I had an audition, and the rest is history. I've done 5 years on The Apprentice. I've now opened my own academy in lockdown. I thought about it for a while. I wanted to write a business course that was for people like me, that wasn't all graphs and charts and statistics and boring waffle. I wanted to write a business course that was a story that taught people. And what's in my business course, you can't learn in any university or any college, because my business skills are all about business life and true grit of business. In every chapter, from how to get an idea to how to run a business in challenging times, I give you an anecdote of how I use what I'm telling you in my business. And that's why I thought I was equipped to write this course, because my journey has been rags to, not riches, but it's been a long journey. It's been an interesting journey. It's not been over one business. It's been over 4 businesses. And now I'm so good at grilling the candidates and looking at business plans. I thought, let me give back. Let me now give back to people. So that's my story.